Good afternoon, everyone. It is exactly 1 o'clock. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, and this is the experience in radio excellence that we like to call Moore and Friends. He's Patrick Moore.
And she is Erica Edwards.
You can give me the $5 for that
I
introduction.
know. We got it right this week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we kind of like to get various faculty members together. Patrick and I have been doing kind of an exploration of issues and current events topics and so forth for a while. But Patrick, why don't you introduce the guest that is joining us in studio this week?
I'll do that. But
a man who needs no introduction.
A man who needs no introduction. That's right. I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to remind everyone out there in listening land that if you have any questions for our guest, who is still mysterious, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, then please feel free to submit them to us via Twitter at #KDUX, #KDUX. And if you ask a question, make a comment, we will get it on the air during the show.
Indeed, we will.
So
I will be monitoring.
we will be monitoring. I'll try to monitor, but my phone, I'm never very good at that. But,
I won't monitor because I don't have Twitter.
You don't have Twitter?
I do not.
Oh, my gosh. Our guest, I've just canceled the show for the week.
What do you mean you don't have Twitter?
Our guest, to start out, I'm going to start out with a story.
Please do.
Start out with a story before I even introduce.
Sounds good.
I've been told we're not supposed to have regrets in life.
I understand.
And I think that's a good bit of advice in the normal case, but I actually have one.
Oh.
In high school, I was kind of a jock.
Okay.
But I was also in the Glee Club. And the choir, and I love to say I sang tenor barry bass in the Glee Club.
Wow, big range.
Big range.
Wow. I'm
but
impressed.
in the start of the spring semester of my senior year in high school, the head of the theater department approached me and asked me to take the part of Lil Abner in the spring production.
Just the title character.
The title character, and put me in a bit of a bind because I was a jock, and I always did sports, and you know the spring track season was coming up, and I was the shot put guy and the discus guy and all this stuff, and that was what I had always done,
right?
And so I had to choose. I tried to get him to let me do both, but I wouldn't let me do both. I couldn't do both, so I had to choose, and like a nitwit, I chose sports.
Okay.
If I had done Lil Abner, especially after I saw who they had cast as Daisy May.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
Regrets there?
Regrets there. Regrets, I have a few.
Could have been a contender.
I think I would have ended up on Broadway had I done Lil Abner in the spring.
Well, we all think that at one
production.
time or another.
I know, that's right. So anyway, I've been looking forward to this. I've also did a couple of community theater productions in Memphis when I was younger, and I've been in a couple of productions here.
Yes, you have.
Once, as I was writing this down, I said to myself, once legitimately, and once by making a bit of a nuisance of myself, about which I'm still a little bit embarrassed, but we won't go there. Anyway,
I don't know, Professor Long, would you fill us in on that
No,
embarrassing
he
moment?
need not do that. He
Never.
need not do that. He need not
Never.
do that. What happens in theater stays in theater. Right. So anyway.
And ends up on main stage, but that's another story.
That's right. You may have guessed by this time that our guest may have guessed our guest.
No.
I don't know where I came up with that. Is Andy Long.
Hey there, everyone.
Hello,
Bravo,
Andy,
bravo.
head of the theater department here at Richland. And now, before I let you introduce yourself.
Yes.
Before I let you introduce yourself, I have to ask you the most important question.
Please do.
I can't wait. I have to get right to it.
Okay.
When I checked the listing on the Richland College website.
Yes.
For the theater department.
Yes.
I discovered that by Greg Lush's name and where the classes are listed, it's spelled Theather.
Okay.
By your name, by Jennifer's name, by Scott's name, and by the box office, it's Theatre.
Okay.
Which is correct.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, because the spelling Theatre is the art form that we practice, and Theater is the building in which we practice the art form.
Okay.
Really?
So
Correct.
Greg Lush is associated with the building and not the art form.
No, that's the that's just the input of data, which quite often is a problematic at its best.
I was just thinking because I was searching for you. and all I got was Greg.
Well, and the other problem is my first name actually is Scott, but I've always gone by Andy because my father loved Andy Griffith, and he said, I'm going to name my son Andy after Andy Griffith, and my mother said, well, that's not formal enough, and so it has to be Andrew. It can't just be Andy, and my first name is Scott. And as you know, when you come to work for Deaprtment, a lot of the times your email address is your first initial followed by your last name.
Right.
And so for a good 2 years, I would get periodic emails from a nice woman who worked at the LaCroix Center named Susan Long.
Right.
And she would forward me
very nice, by
emails
the way,
that were
yes.
intended, they're very nice, emails that were intended for me that had gone to her. And after about 2 years, I was walking through, it was at one of our spring convocation return weeks.
Right.
And I was walking down here to get my Blue Mesa. And I walked down the hall and I saw this woman pass with a name tag that said Susan Long. And I said, excuse me. And we introduced ourselves after 2 years of sending emails back and forth because her email is slong@deaprtment.edu.
Right, gotcha.
Love it.
Love
Excellent.
it. Okay. Let's get down to the rest of the reality here.
Absolutely.
I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to tell us who you are, where you come from, what's your background,
Certainly.
how did you end up here at Richland College heading the theater department?
All with suitable drama. Go.
All with
Go.
suitable drama.
Okay. Well, I graduated from Stephen F. Austin University a long time ago. That's right. I got my
Not
master's
that
degree.
long ago.
It was pretty while ago, and I got my master's degree. And when I first graduated, like a lot of people who graduate from college, I was like, "What do I do now?" And the head of the department at the time, wonderful man named Dr. Clarence Boz, said, "Hey," and I graduated kind of weirdly. I graduated in the fall, so I graduated at Christmas time.
Right.
And the head of the department, Dr. Boz, said, "There's this little college not far from here that needs an acting instructor. What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "You should apply." And they had an acting instructor that had left mid-year, and so I applied and I got the job. It was this little college called Lon Morris College in Jacksonville, Texas. Lon Morris College, a private college with a stellar alumni list of performers like Tommy Tune, Sandy Duncan.
No.
They all went to
What?
Lon Morris College.
I love
Lon Morris
that.
College.
And,
That's a great
and-
story. Never heard
And
that.
so Steve McQueen went for one day. Steve McQueen went for one day. He was kicked out of the college. It was a private college. He was kicked out of the college on day one. He rode his motorcycle through the cafeteria. Got kicked out. Anyway,
kicked out.
so I applied to Lon
Later
Morris.
used it to leap over a fence
in The Great
Yes,
Escape.
in The Great Escape. That's
Fantastic
right.
film.
Great film.
So I applied for the job, and I, lo and behold, got the job, being this brand new, graduated with my master's degree, not really knowing what I was doing. And one of my professors came up to
MFA?
me. No, it's an MA.
MA.
And another professor came up to me, Dr. Lawrence Zilmer, and he said, "I really wish you would not take this job." And I said, "Okay, why?" And he said, "Because you don't know anything." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, in the field of acting, if you take a faculty job immediately upon getting your graduate degree, you're simply going to be regurgitating the information you learned in graduate school."
Right.
He said, "I really wish you would go out in the world and spend some time failing and succeeding and learning before you go back to teaching." Well, I ignored him because I needed a job, and I went to Lon Morris, and I worked that spring semester, and then I re-upped for the next year, and during that following year, I left at spring break and came to Dallas and auditioned for the Shakespeare Festival of Dallas over spring break, and I got cast, and I went back to Lon Morris, and I finished out the semester and submitted my resignation. And I moved to Dallas and became a professional actor. And I worked for a good 20, 25 years in the industry. I bopped all over the United States. I acted a lot. I did about 1,000 commercials in that time period. I directed a lot. I directed 3 national tours. And one day, I had a roommate a guy named Alan Tudyk. And you might know Alan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you might know.
Firefly.
Yeah, Firefly. He was in the Rogue One. He was the big robot character in Rogue One.
And there's also kind of a little known one that he plays the cousin of one of the Waynes.
Yes, in that TV
Bruce
series,
Wayne,
the short-lived TV series. Yeah,
yeah.
He was in Frozen. He was the Duke in Frozen with the flipping hair. He's done a million things.
He's wonderful.
He really is. And so we were roommates. And
That's so fun. I love that.
And we went to an open mic night on a dare to do some comedy. And I remember Alan went first, and he ran up on stage and he said, "Hi guys, my name's Alan Tudyk," and somebody threw a cowboy boot at him. True story. And that's all he had said. And I went up and did it, and I loved it. And
what did they throw at you?
Nothing. Laughter.
Laughter.
And,
good.
And I loved it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I began to transition and work in between the worlds of comedy and the worlds of acting, and got a booking agent and ended up playing really large venues and touring around colleges and universities all over the place. I toured for 10 years and it was a wonderful time. And then, as the story goes, I met a woman.
Oh my
gosh.
And then all your troubles started.
That's right.
I'll say that as
I
the
like to
woman
say
in the
that
room.
Downfall of all of us.
I like to say
know how
that
goes.
I used to do comedy for the women, and I gave it up for a woman. And so my wife and I, we got married. Pardon me. We got married.
That's what made her
and,
your wife, by the way.
Yeah, getting married.
Yes,
It
right.
works that way. Isn't it really weird? And
Right.
so we got married, and one day she looked at me, and we had our first child, and she said, hey, Joyce Jackson, and she said, is there any way that you could make a living without being gone 250 days a year?
Not being on the road. I'd like my husband to be there.
I thought that was a reasonable request.
Yeah.
And so
and that's probably why you're still married.
I really began to focus on finding work in Dallas, and I worked here for a really long time. And then I was reaching my late 40s, and a buddy of mine called me up and said, hey, they need an adjunct professor to teach acting 3 days a week over at Richland. I know you cobbled together employment. You should apply.
You should apply.
And I was like, that sounds wonderful. So I filled out an online application, and I got a call from a dean to come in and do an interview. And about 10 minutes into the conversation, I must have looked confused, because she said, you look confused. And I said, I am. I applied to be an adjunct teaching an acting class 3 days a week, and you're talking to me about choosing seasons and handling budgets. And she said, oh, I want you to be the head of the program. And I said, let me move my brain. Go ahead, please. And at the end of the interview, she said, well, does this sound like something that you're interested in? And I said, very possibly so. And I hadn't taught since those early days of Lon Morris.
So you had about 2 semesters of teaching.
Correct.
Or three semesters.
3 semesters of teaching.
Semesters
And so I left the interview with Sherry Dean, who was the dean at the time.
Love Sherry.
And I called my wife and I said, I just interviewed to be the head of the theater program at Richland College. And she said, oh, is that something you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And the next day, Sherry called me up and said, you have an interview with the president of the college, Dr. Kay Eggleston. And I said, oh, okay. And I wasn't nervous because I hadn't applied for the job. And so I came in and I interviewed with the president. And the interview went really well. And at the end of the interview, I said, okay, well, I'm off to go look for a new car. And Kay said, what are you going to buy? And I said, I don't know. I said, it depends on how this went. If it didn't go well, I'm going to buy something small and economical because that gets great gas mileage because I drive around a lot. If it did go well, I think I'm going to buy a truck because I've always wanted one. And I live pretty close to campus. And she leaned over and said, look at trucks. And I said, okay, I will. Awesome. And that was 7 years ago.
Awesome.
And I had no idea how much I would love this job.
That's great. That's a great
That's
story.
a fabulous
story. See,
yeah.
You could always depend on Andy for a story.
For a
Not
story?
always.
Probably most of it is true, too.
So
Slightly.
embellished, artistic license. Do you think you all, I'm assuming given that story, there wasn't anything particular that you always wanted to teach necessarily? And
No, there wasn't.
I suspect that a lot of us come to it from that direction, but were you one of these people from the point you were in high school getting involved in productions, I'm assuming, did you know, or at what point did you know that you wanted to be a professional actor, comedian, performer?
From very early age. My father was a college professor. He taught theater.
Oh.
And so
Born
when
to
I
it,
was in my first college production when I was 8. I was one of the no-neck monsters, one of the little brats in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Oh, nice.
And then he brought me on stage again when I was 10 in a musical version of The Rainmaker called 110 in the Shade, and I actually got to sing a solo. And as a kid, learning to be about to approach my teenage boy time, it suddenly dawned on me that in theater you get to hang out with a lot of females, and so and they would keep me back in the dressing room when I wasn't needed on stage, and I was like, wow, theater's pretty cool.
Very good.
Which is where you went wrong when you chose sports that spring semester.
That's exactly right. That's what I was just telling
Daisy
you.
May.
That's what Daisy. Oh my gosh.
What could have been the road?
What could have been
the road not taken. You did
May.
very well for yourself, Professor Moore.
Oh, thank you.
So-
Thank you. Oh, yes, I did. As it's turned out.
As it turned
Yes.
out, you have
That's
nothing
right.
to
I have my
complain
own
about.
Daisy May now.
Indeed.
And my cute little baby. I wish I could show you pictures, but and I just showed Andy pictures. I've shown you pictures,
You've
but I
shown me
can't show them
pictures.
on the air here.
She's
'cause the
what,
phone
how
wouldn't-
old?
She's 9 months now.
9 months. Wow.
A little over 9 months.
So she's been out as long as she was in.
That's right. That's right.
I'm glad
Half
you
and
said
half.
that. I wanted to.
Half and
I
half.
really wanted to.
Okay. Before we get too far into this, I don't want to forget to ask you to tell us about the festival. You and your theater department just went to a festival, and I want you to give me the story, identify the festival, and tell me what you performed there and what was the result. I heard good stories about it.
Going back to the interview with Dr. Eggleston, she asked me in that interview, "What's your 10-year plan for Richland Theater?" And I said part of my answer that I gave her was participating in the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. And she said, "Okay, why? What is that?" And here's the short answer. There are potentially two different kinds of festivals that Richland Theater could participate in. One is purely for community colleges, and it's a Texas-based only. The other is the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, which is national. It's the largest, most prestigious, most involved theater festival of any kind in the world. There are approximately 1,350 colleges and universities that participate in this.
Wow.
There are no class divisions, so if you enter the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, then you could be competing against UT Austin. Okay, there are no class divisions. And what you do is you register a production, and then you take a production to a state festival, and you perform your production at the state festival alongside everyone else who comes to the state festival, which we just did. This is Richland's 4th year to participate in KCACTF.
Okay.
Our first year we did a production of a play called Rashomon. We went to the state festival.
Saw
We
that.
got a few individual awards, no major awards, but it was a great learning experience.
So no leg lamps, no major awards.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely. Thanks for referencing a Christmas movie
that's
since
right.
Halloween's over and we're now officially in Christmas season.
That's exactly right.
And then the second year we went, we took an original script that I had written called Comes the Storm, and we took this play. And there are two major awards that are given at the end of this week-long festival. One is the Director's Choice Award, in which all the directors of all the productions that are there vote on what they think is the best production of the festival. And then there is the Critics' Choice, which are the professional critics or respondents that they've brought in. They vote on their choice. And so the second year we went with Comes the Storm, we won the Director's Choice. The directors voted for us, okay?
And that's got to feel awfully good given that you wrote the thing.
It did. It
Yeah.
did. Now, just because you win at the state festival doesn't mean you automatically advance to the next level. I'll explain that in a moment. It doesn't. Then the third year we went, we took a musical called Gray. Some individual awards, no major awards. This year we did the Nobel Prize-winning play from 1953, Waiting for Godot.
Right.
And we not only won some individual awards, we also won the best load in and load out of a production, because you have 4 hours to move into the theater, set up your set, set up your lights, set up your sound, and then it's curtain.
Wow.
And then you strike it
4
all and take it
hours.
all out afterwards. Okay, so our performance was Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on the 28th of October, which meant our load-in began at 7 a.m. that morning. So we were staying in a hotel, so the night before I'm telling the students, okay, set your alarms for 5:30 because we've got to leave the hotel by 6:30 to get to the school in time.
And your set's like in a truck.
It's in a truck all taken apart.
Right.
And
right. Disassembled.
Right.
Yes.
And so we not only won the Director's Choice at the end of the week, we also won the Critics' Choice at the end of the
marvelous.
week.
When both.
And in the 4
often does that
years
happen?
in the 4 years that we've gone, it has not happened. We were the first in the last 4 years. I don't know previously what has happened.
Right.
But then the way it works is because there are 8 regions in the United States for KCACTF, and we're in Region 6, which makes up Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and New Mexico.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason there are only 5 states in our region is because Texas is so big. Okay. Other regions have 10, 12 states in them.
Right.
You know, and so the way it works is all of the different productions that are now called held productions, so they're waiting to see if they advanced. I have to submit a 5-minute video, 6 photographs, and a 250-word director's statement, and a committee from the region selects out of the 10 or 11 shows that are held which 6 will advance to the regional level. And then out of each region, 1 show advances to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. in April to perform at the National Festival.
So when do you
Wouldn't that
find
be
out?
cool?
When do you
I'll find out in December if we advance to regions.
Okay.
And the regional festival is February 28th through March 3rd. And then you find out at the end of the regional festival at the award ceremony if you advance to DC.
Gotcha.
So if you win at the state level, then you become eligible
To perform at the regional level.
regional level, but
Right.
you're not guaranteed a spot at the
Correct.
regional level.
Correct.
But they would not. If you don't win at the state level, then you're not even eligible to go to
Correct.
the regional. And then if you win
At the regional, you advance
then
to
you're-
national.
You automatically.
Yes.
Okay. So at least there's something there.
Yes. 1 show comes out of each region.
And there are
There are 8 regions.
8 regions.
Yes.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
exciting stuff. That's heady company.
So
It is exciting
here in
stuff.
December, if you're going to regional.
It is exciting stuff because if we advance to regional, we'll be there with, for example, last year, University of Oklahoma. Well, you know, they are a very large department with about 25 faculty members. We are growing, but we're not there.
Not there. Not there. Now, so you will be the show coming out of Texas.
Actually, no, because there are several schools that get to participate with people sending the respondents to them.
Okay.
So there are potentially other schools coming out of Texas as well.
Okay.
But we were the winner at the festival, at the state festival.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what a thrill it would be for your students to be able to perform at the Kennedy Center.
Well, absolutely. And, and part of my reason for why I wanted to participate in this as opposed to the Community College Play Festival is first of all, we're Richland. Right. And I think everyone understands when I say that.
Right.
What that reference means.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And I want my students to understand they belong. There is nothing that these universities have over what they can do. And, the first year we went 4 years ago, my students were very nervous approaching the festival on day 1. And by day 2 or 3, they were like, yeah, we belong. We belong. And
Nice.
what a great boost that is for them.
Right. Okay, I'm skipping to the end of my questions here temporarily.
Okay.
Because what you just said made me think about it. Now your students belong. Tell me, where have some of your students ended up? Where have they
great
gone
question.
after here?
Great question. In my seventh year, I'm here at Richland. We've had students that have gone on to, for example, we recruit for the Richland Theater Program. We go to high schools, we see productions. We also go to large recruiting fairs and recruit students, but that's only half the equation. The other half is finding a really great place for our students to go from here to transition out.
Right.
And a lot plays into that, not just talent level or ability level, but also family financial situation, all sorts of things.
Sure.
So we have placed students locally at Texas Women's University, at University of Texas at Arlington, at University of Texas at Dallas, at University of North Texas, at Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth. We've had 4 or 5 students end up at Texas Wesleyan. We have a really good relationship with them. We have had students statewide we have students currently at Stephen F. Austin. We have students currently at Texas State. Right. We have had students leave Richland Theater. We have one who's a senior right now at Lindenwood University in Missouri, which has a strong musical theater program. Okay. We have a student that just recently graduated, last spring, graduated from Stevens College in Missouri, and she is now the theater teacher at Dallas Carter High School.
Oh, good.
We have had students graduate from Eugene Lang, the new school in New York.
Okay.
We had one graduate from Pace University in New York. We have had a couple graduate from the American Conservatory of Dramatic Art in New York. We have 2 students currently at Loyola in New Orleans. So
that's a good school.
We're spreading them out different places based upon talent, ability, their intent with their educational career and their financial situation.
Mm-hmm. That's really impressive. We're really moving around and building like an alumni network around the country.
Absolutely, because the goal is that at some point somebody's going to say, "And I'd like to thank Andy Long," when they're accepting that award.
You serve my inspiration.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's a great goal. Okay. Let's talk a little more nuts and bolts.
Sure.
About the program.
Sure.
Do students have to be theater nerds to get into your classes?
Absolutely not. In fact, I would venture to say that, in the introduction to theater courses, which are those good core curriculum arts choices that students can make, 80 to 90%, and I always ask the students, on day one of my questions is, why are you in this class? And 80 to 90%, they're fulfilling that core requirement.
Right.
About 10% because they pursued theater in high school and they wanted to dip their toes back in the water a little bit, or it held an interest to them. Some of those students end up becoming part of the theater program and auditioning for plays or working tech on plays. In the performance-based classes themselves, particularly Acting 1, about 50% of those students are theater majors, and about 50% of those students are students who said, I really want to try a college acting course. I've always been kind of interested, or somebody's always told me, or I was playing sports in high school and I could never do it.
Right.
Now I want to try.
That's me.
So about 50% of them are those students. Any student at all that is associated with Richland College can audition for any of our plays, and we've also had faculty and staff in our plays, like Mr. Patrick Moore,
That's
who has
right.
been in one of our productions. So anyone, I do require the student, if they're a student, that they be registered at Richland, not Deaprtment, but at Richland, because that helps me to maintain some level of contact and control over the situation.
Sure. I know that I've seen in movies depictions of acting classes.
Okay, yeah,
and
sure.
Those acting classes in the movies are always really pretentious and kind of creepy.
Right.
And I'm assuming that that's not the way it really is in real life. So what if a student gets into an acting class at Richland, what can they expect to experience in that class?
Okay, well, let me preface this by saying, if you saw the movie that came out, and I'm blanking on the name, just a couple of years ago about the music faculty and the music professor that won multiple Academy Awards, and he was so hard-nosed. The guy who was on Oz, bald-headed guy who was on Oz.
I'm not very good at that kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was thinking of Tootsie.
Sorry.
I was thinking of the acting class of Tootsie.
No, it was
and this is not the one that was the guy who was in Jaws.
No. It was the Academy Award-winning music movie. Where the guy was so hard on his students.
Yes. Oh, why can't I say it? I'm
Okay,
embarrassed
somebody
now.
out there in KDUX
Yes.
land, hashtag KDUX, hashtag KDUX, give us the answer to that. We're monitoring Twitter right now.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we
Andy
are.
is not monitoring Twitter because he says he doesn't have
Whiplash.
Twitter. Whiplash. Okay.
Whiplash. And it won multiple Academy Awards, and the guy was just so... I had a long conversation with Derek Lagozo, head of the music program,
department
about
here.
this. And I said...
He'll be appearing on our show in the spring.
Oh, fantastic. And I said, so Derek, what is your opinion of Whiplash? And he goes, man, anyone who taught like that would be immediately fired.
Yeah.
And what can they expect in an acting class? Well, here's my belief. It isn't... You don't have to be afraid of getting up in front of an audience. let that keep you from taking an acting class, because what do really good actors try to do? They try to believably and genuinely portray the human condition. That's why we work so closely with the psychology program, why we've had great conversations with the philosophy program, because you are trying to represent or to portray the entire or whole human being, not just physically. You're not just performing, but you're actually trying to believably and honestly portray another human being to an audience. So we spend a lot of time exploring and researching the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, and the intellectual sides of a human being. So it's not just, you're not just going to get up there and I'm going to go, now you must emote. No, it's not this pretentious thing like you see in the movies. No, it's plain talk. It's having a real conversation about who is a person and what makes up a person. We take little field trips around campus. We watch people. We watch people walk. We watch people interact. We watch people move. We learn about the relationships between human beings.
And I bet that a lot of people have never, everybody has been watching people per se their whole lives.
Absolutely.
But if you've never intentionally watched them
and intentionally watch them with some background information to feed what you're looking for.
Right.
It's very,
it's different.
Patrick, ever play poker?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love poker. I love to play poker. And, there's that old saying that if you can't spot the sucker.
Twitches. I've got to tell,
Do you?
Yeah. I
shouldn't have told you that. The word you just said is a tell, okay? And it's a tell that. Sorry for the phone interruption.
Yeah.
And it's a tell. It's the
I don't know who is responsible for that.
it's that nonverbal communication that you just gave away something inside.
Right.
Okay. And that's what acting is. And we look for those in people, and we look for those in characters. You know that old saying that if you can't spot the sucker within the first 5 minutes at the table, you're the sucker. It's really very true, And so we walk around campus and we examine human beings. We examine the situation. We examine strangers. We examine people that we know. And it's really about learning to be a better whole human. And if you are, and this is most people, if you are ever going to make a presentation to a boss, or a presentation to a boardroom, or a presentation to a courtroom, or you are ever going to have to pitch an idea at work, man, an acting class is going to help you.
Yeah. And probably approaching 100% of people will do one of those things at some point in their lives. Right. Exactly. That's great. So they tell me that, in moving on a little bit, that the number one, and this you've just talked about it sort of, the number one fear most people have is public speaking.
Oh, well,
that's what we all hear.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we hear. It seems like maybe one thing that could be worse than that even is public singing. Will students in your acting classes have to sing?
Depends on the class.
Okay.
Acting 1, no. Acting 2 or 3, no. Now, if they take Gregory Lush's musical theater class, then yeah, they got to sing.
Musical theater class, you got to sing.
Musical theater class, you got to sing. I mean, it makes sense,
sure,
right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, right? But no, but the students don't have to sing in the basic acting classes at all.
Got it. So if a student was just trying to figure out if they were interested in theater, where would they start? Acting 1.
Sure.
Is where they'd start. I mean,
sure.
that's
Acting
the
1,
obvious
Drama
place.
1351. Well, it depends.
Okay.
Acting 1, Drama 1351, which meets Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10:10 to noon.
Okay.
But perhaps they're not just interested in acting. Maybe they're interested in the technical side of things.
Okay.
In which case they would sign up for Stagecraft 1.
Okay.
Now, I always tell my students that when you grow up and get out in the world, at some point you're going to own a house. And when you own a house, you have to be one of two things, wealthy or handy, because stuff's going to break.
Yeah.
And if you have to constantly pay someone to fix it, you're going to lose all your money. Stagecraft teaches you how to use power tools. Stagecraft teaches you how to measure and cut. Stagecraft
twice and once.
That's right.
They'll teach
measure twice.
They'll teach you how to drywall.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like
that could be useful.
It's a life class, is what it is.
This is a technical skills class that would be transferable to a job. I mean, it's like a job skill.
Hey, can I jump on something you
may.
just said a while ago? You said, so one of the biggest fears is public speaking and, having stage fright, in other words.
Right.
And early on in the Acting 1 class, we do an exercise which helps you to understand why you have stage fright. And you can't begin to get rid of something until you first understand that you have it and why you have it. And we've learned that through psychology. So here's the exercise that we do, and I'll describe it for you. So I get 3 volunteer students. They get up in front of the class, and I say, okay, you guys just stand there. We're going to look at you. We're just going to examine everything about you that we maybe never noticed before. So you guys look at their ears, look at their nose, look at their hair. Yeah. And the 3 students stand there, and of course they try to act really confident at first, but pretty soon they're squirming. Right. Pretty soon they're nervous because we got another group of people that's just staring at them. And I say, okay, you know what? We're going to continue to do this exercise. We're going to continue to look at you, but now you 3, I want you to count the number of lights in this room. The first one to correctly count them wins a prize. Go. And the 3 students immediately start focusing on counting the lights, and they are no longer nervous because now they have a job to do. They have a task to perform. And when you are focused on performing a task, you are no longer nervous that people are watching you perform it. And that's what acting is.
Okay. 2 things you made me think. One is, and when I was writing down all my questions here, I didn't even think about this, the fact that I've heard plenty of times, or several times anyway, performers say, accomplished Academy Award-winning performers say that they are still besieged by stage fright before performances. But once they start, it all goes away.
Because once you start, you have that task to focus on. And it's before the task begins that our human brain lets those nerves take control.
Right. The second thing is I have in my classes frequently students make presentations.
Sure.
They'll have to study something and make a presentation. And so often they will stand in front of the class and try to read off cards, and I tell them, no, they can't do that. And they always talk, not always, I don't mean to belittle students, I'm not, but regularly you hear, oh, but I'm nervous, I'm scared, I have fear of public speaking. What I want you to do, here I am giving you a job.
Excellent. I need jobs.
Put together a seminar that we can send students to learn to combat stage fright. Although you've just told me how to do it, I guess I could do it myself in my own classes. And what I described is the very basic, very beginning stages of it. Because could you do that in an hour? Could you say,
absolutely.
Okay, this is if you want to be a speaker, you've got a presentation coming up, come do this 1 hour session.
But there's another aspect to it that
extra
the
credit.
Students that you were just describing have not fulfilled. They have not fulfilled their duty. Now, maybe they wrote the presentation they're going to give, but they haven't rehearsed giving the presentation. Right. Because if they've rehearsed giving the presentation, they could put those note cards down and just simply talk. And, no one enjoys going to hear someone read.
No.
You enjoy hearing someone speak.
Yes.
And that's
Excellent.
what acting tries to get people to do.
Okay. That's great. I may pursue this, but we'll talk about it later.
Oh, sounds good.
Okay. So how many shows do y'all do each year? I have this idea that you probably have a regular annual program where you do one comedy, one drama, one musical, and one artsy-fartsy show. How do you plan your annual repertoire?
That is a really good question, and I will say to you that it has evolved since I've been here, and it is evolving still. And the reason I say that is when I was hired 7 years ago, I did not direct the first play. We had an adjunct that was going to direct it. And I would, you don't throw too much on the new guy at first, you know? And so I was coming in and learning the system and learning the program and learning the vernacular and learning the acronyms. And as we all know, there's a million of them.
Yes.
And so I attended the first audition for the first show when I was hired, and there were 12 people that auditioned. And if I were to cast any of them in the current evolution of Richland Theater, maybe one would get cast, but we had to cast the show. And they were up there and they were facing the back wall and talking very quietly. And I looked at thought to myself, what have I done?
What have I gotten myself into?
And I was constantly getting asked the question when people would meet me from the campus, oh, you're the new theater guy.
Yeah.
When are you going to do Shakespeare? And I thought, I don't know. When does the Messiah return?
Yeah.
But so through recruitment, through a gradual increase of difficulty level of shows, we are now building the program, both the quantity of numbers of students and the quality of students, up to where this year we tackled Waiting for Godot.
Right. Which is pretty sophisticated.
It is extremely sophisticated. The Nobel Prize isn't given out for Thor Ragnarok. Okay, nothing to slam against Thor Ragnarok, but it's not going to win a Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize.
And so it's like an athletic program. You know, if you start with a bunch of guys who've never lifted weights, you're not going to suddenly take on a bunch of guys who have.
Right.
You have to build it up, and that's what we're doing. And when I was hired, I was the only full-time faculty member, and Jennifer Owen was the only full-time tech person.
Right.
We now also have Gregory Lush, who is a full-time faculty member. We still have Jennifer Owen.
Yes.
Scott Osborne is a full-time instructional specialist, and Justin Ashley, who is starting next Monday as a full-time instructional specialist.
Okay.
So we now have 5 full-time people, which
So
is
you're
great.
definitely growing. And
We
your,
are.
Your number of students, and I've gone to a bunch of shows, and you have a lot
Right.
more than 12
Yes.
people and a lot more than 12 students and performers who can do the job.
This semester, I have the best acting 1 class I've had since I taught at Richland.
Well, that's saying something.
It is.
Given
It's
what
good.
I've seen, yes.
It's good.
So you didn't really answer my question, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So how do you plan your repertoire
Gotcha.
during the year?
You're right. I went on a tangent. So we do look at various things. For the last, for the first couple of years, it was all contemporary work.
Okay.
A drama, a comedy, a musical, and then a 4th show, but keeping it contemporary and fairly simple. The most difficult show we did my first year here was Proof. Okay. But contemporary play.
Right.
From the 90s. And that has evolved, and so we try to focus on we do try to introduce a comedy at some point in the season.
Right.
We do try to introduce a drama at some point in the season, a musical at some point in the season.
Right.
Last year we initiated a brand new thing here at Richland called Richland Writes. It was a 10-minute play festival of plays written by students, directed by students, acted by students, and designed by students. We are doing that again this year. We work with Scott Branks and his creative writing courses. And any Richland student can submit a 10-minute play. We have a blind sampling of the 10-minute plays, and then they are chosen without knowing who wrote them. So we're doing that in the early spring.
Fun.
We brought in 3 professional playwrights to respond to the student playwrights last spring,
That's interesting.
which was really great.
Yes, I think that's very good.
And they were very positive responses and constructive feedback on their 10-minute plays. And so that's why I say it's evolving. I imagine that before too many years, the potential for a Shakespeare can be introduced.
Okay. That was one of my questions here later on. What if I want to sort of be old home, not very theater sophisticated in air quotes, and just want to hear Bye Bye Birdie or The Music Man or see The Lady Killers or see Arsenic and Old Lace or something like that? Sort of, do you do those kinds of shows as well? Sort of the old like comfort food of theater?
Sure. Just a couple of years ago, we did The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. Right. But first, you asked a question, what if I want to see? And first and foremost, in educational theater, my responsibility is to the students. It's not to the community.
Okay.
If I were a professional theater relying solely on ticket sales, I am going to perform solely to my community who's going to buy those tickets.
Right. And so they're going to get the comfort food.
And there are a million of those productions around the Metroplex.
Right.
First of all, I will probably never participate in Bye Bye Birdie.
I did once. In high school, I actually was in Bye Bye Birdie.
It's really not my thing. And if I want to do a musical from that era, there's some others that I would prefer if I want the students to have that educational experience. But my first responsibility is to the education of my students. And so I'm going to find the material that I think focuses on that rather than on entertaining the community. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. That's great. In fact, I'm sure if I were going to be one of your students, which maybe I should be, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I registered for a class.
Oh, God, no, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding, with an acting class, an older perspective is tremendously helpful. I had a student in my acting 1, 2, and 3. He took all 3 about 4 years ago. He was a retired history professor from Collin College who came down. He was 70 years old. He came down and he had always wanted to take an acting class. Always wanted to. And he didn't want to do it at Collin because he knew all those folks.
Everybody, right.
So he came down here. In one of the classes, and he took 3 semesters of acting classes he ended up taking. And he now has an agent and is now auditioning for commercials.
Oh, awesome.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
And,
that's great.
But anyway, in one of the classes one day, we were working on The Shadow Box by Michael Christopher, which is a beautiful, gorgeous 1977 Pulitzer Prize-winning play about cancer.
Oh.
And so we were working on this play, and, my 19, 20-year-olds are struggling with some of it. And one day he came up to me before class started, and he said, "May I talk to the class today for a few minutes?" And I said, "Absolutely. What did you want to talk about?" And he said, "I'm a cancer survivor. But it's back, and I know that's how I'm going to die. And I think I can give them the perspective they're missing." And oh my gosh, the students were riveted by him.
Right.
And he spoke for about 5 minutes, and he said, "Have I gone too long?" I said, "You can keep going." And he did.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
That's a great story. All right. I know you've produced some R-rated shows.
of course.
And obviously I don't think that's a problem. Have you ever picked out a show and then on second thought decided, maybe we shouldn't do that after all. Maybe we shouldn't actually do this. How do you decide what's too adult for Richland? What about Equus? What about Corpus Christi? What about Oh Calcutta? I mean, where would you draw the line at what's sort of okay for the Richland College stage?
Well, I don't know yet. And that's about the honestest answer as I can give you. First of all, we're never going to do Oh Calcutta because I don't really like that show. I don't think it's that great. Equus is a pretty good show, but Equus is I don't know. Equus, it's Americans are prudes.
Yes,
and
that's
we,
true.
And what the question that you're focusing on is focusing on the premise that Equus has nudity in it. It's
well,
not
it also has
focusing-
brutality against animals, and
Right, but that's all described. It's not seen.
Right.
That's
true.
And
That's true.
and Equus is at its heart a psychological thriller and a psychological exploration, and the nudity is almost kind of a side note.
Right.
But that's what audiences would focus on. And it's interesting, Patrick. About 4 years ago, we did a musical that I co-wrote called Fire and Blood, and it was about vampires in post-Katrina New Orleans. And there's a scene in which, and this is why I say Americans are kind of prudish, there's a scene in which this group of vampires came into this nightclub and completely decimated all the humans in the nightclub. And the very next moment, the vampires are celebrating their exuberant victory, and 2 of the male vampires kiss each other. And this woman sitting in the row in front of me went, "Oh my God." And I thought to myself, you just watched 15 humans get slaughtered, but the kiss is what takes you over the edge.
Right.
And so that just boggles my mind. So I don't know. I honestly don't know if there's a line. The only line would be if somebody brought me a script and it was filled with gratuitous violence or gratuitous nudity. We haven't done nudity on stage. We've done men taking their shirts off,
right?
Which I guess is nudity.
That's nudity of a yeah,
absolutely. But it's by our standards in society acceptable nudity,
right?
Which kind of boggles my mind as well, because there's this whole male-female dynamic.
Right.
So I guess and we have done R-rated material. We have done some very graphic language.
Yes.
And again, I'm not going to choose a script where any of that is presented gratuitously, but if it is within the confines of the story and it's integral and important to the characters and moving the story forward, then I'm going to do it. And here's why. Because this line constantly changes. My wife's grandfather was Paul Baker.
Okay.
Paul Baker founded the Dallas Theater Center. He founded Arts Magnet High School downtown. He was the chair of the theater program at Baylor University from 1939 to 1961. In 1961, he was producing a production of Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill.
Right.
They were the first the first entity in the world to receive permission from Eugene O'Neill's widow to produce that show since he died. The show contained the words "damn" and "hell." Can we say that on the air? I hope so. And the local churches,
we do have some limits, but
local churches in Waco found out about it, and they began protesting. 1961, the president of Baylor University called Paul Baker in and said, "You need to remove those words from that production." Paul Baker said, "This won the Pulitzer Prize for drama, and who am I to censor a Pulitzer Prize-winning work?"
Right.
The president shut the production down. Paul Baker then quit his job that he had had since 1939. Within 45 minutes, he and his entire faculty and 300 theater majors were all at Trinity University in San Antonio within 45 minutes. There is a line, I'm sure, but that line is constantly evolving.
Right.
So that's my answer to that question.
That's a great answer.
Thanks.
I went online yesterday to Broadway.com.
Yeah.
And I looked at ticket prices. And basic ticket prices to see Wicked on Broadway right now. Okay, I know you're not a fan.
No, I love Wicked.
You love Wicked?
I love Wicked.
Okay,
Wicked's
you're talking about the
fantastic.
prices.
I'm talking about the prices.
Okay, I'm a big fan myself. Anyway, the cheapest price was $109. And I didn't even look at there was a whole section for premium prices. I didn't even look at that. How much does it cost to go to a show at Richland College?
It's free.
It's free.
It's free.
How?
Can't
get any better than that.
And some of the colleges around, some of the colleges in our district charge an admission price.
Right. I thought they did.
Yeah, some of them do. And I was approached a couple of years ago about charging an admission price, as was the music department for concerts.
Okay, right.
As was the art department for art shows.
Right.
And first of all, if you're going to do that, just logistically speaking, you need a box office with someone who's going to man it 8 hours a day,
Yep.
with the ability to process credit card information, which means they need to be a person who is an employee, not a student,
Right.
because they need to be able to be trusted with the credit card numbers. So just logistically, there are some issues immediately that fall into place.
Right.
But then there's also this other issue that I have. And that is that the students pay tuition to come to Richland College. They pay student service fees. And I feel that our productions are part of that student service. I feel that what we are doing with our productions is giving back to the campus.
Right.
We are providing this creative and artistic outlet, not only for the students who participate in the shows, but the students who come to see it. And I don't want to infringe on that in any way. Besides the fact that those who do charge an admission price, those theater departments only get to keep half of the money for the ticket price. The other half goes back into the college, into the general fund.
Got it. So a school might be interested in having you charge a fee, because then that is a revenue stream for them.
Absolutely, if they're going to then pay for someone to work a box office.
That's crazy. Okay, given the fact that I don't have to pay to get into the show, if I were a fan of Richland Theater, how might I support the program even if without paying an entry fee at the show?
We do accept donations.
Okay.
We do accept donations at our productions. We have this little tradition that was here. It was well established before I was ever hired, with this Greek pedestal with a little hole in the top. And,
right.
And, we might on average get $20, $25 per performance from people who drop in $1 or $2, but every bit helps. absolutely.
Where does that money go?
The money goes to the Angels of Richland Theater, which is our scholarship fund, in order to provide scholarships for theater students.
That is fabulous. I love to hear that. And I knew that because I've been to some shows.
There you go.
And I've actually dropped $1 in once or twice. Okay, here's changing subject again now, changing direction a little bit. How much time we got? Oh, we're pretty close. May I ask you this one question and then my closing question, because we're getting within about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay, no.
I always wonder for singers and musicians and performers who are professionals and do this stuff all the time. A professional musician who performs for 20 years will perform thousands of songs. And I always wonder, of all of those songs, which ones are they performing just because they have to, because the audience demands it, and which ones do they really like? I happen to know that, based on stories that Elvis's, I mean, how many songs did Elvis sing over his career? Thousands. His favorite song was In the Ghetto.
Written by Mike Davis.
Exactly. So anyway, my question is, what do you have a favorite show? What's your favorite show? I'm just curious about this. For somebody who's been in untold numbers of productions, which show, if you could say, okay, I could only do one show, which one would it be?
I did a play at Teatro Dallas about, almost 20 years ago. It was a play called Santos, and it was the story of Santos Rodriguez. Santos Rodriguez was a 12-year-old boy who, true story, 12-year-old boy. In 1974, a convenience store was vandalized in the middle of the night down off of Oak Lawn. And the police arrived. A policeman arrived. He saw 3 teenage boys running away. He fired at them, which is illegal.
Right.
They're not deer. And then another officer arrived and said, "Did you know who it was?" He said, "Yeah, I think so." They went to a little house where lived a 70-something-year-old grandfather and his 2 grandsons, 14-year-old David Rodriguez and 12-year-old Santos Rodriguez. They put the boys in the squad car. They drove them down to the convenience store. They began interrogating them. During the interrogation, Officer Darrell Kane held his .357 Magnum up to the 12-year-old boy's head and said, "Tell the truth, son, you did this." Santos Rodriguez said, "I'm telling you the truth. It wasn't us." Darrell Kane pulled the trigger and killed the little boy. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter because he didn't mean to. The gun just went off. And
yeah, they do that.
I was cast to play Doug Mulder, who was Henry Wade's assistant district attorney, as in Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And Doug Mulder's a real life guy. I met him. I spent some time with him. We ran that show for 8 weeks. It sold out every night with lines going around the block. We had to close because there was another event coming into the venue.
Right.
We reopened it 2 months later and ran for 14 weeks, completely sold out. I only said words that Doug Mulder said in real life because all of my scenes were in the courtroom and they were directly from the court transcript. If I could do a show again, it would be that one.
Maybe we could do that one here at Richland.
Maybe. I could investigate that.
Yeah. Here I am telling you to do.
Help me choose the season, Patrick.
Yeah, that's right. That seems to be where I've been focused all this time.
So what you're really saying is, what show can we do that you would star in?
That I could star in. Right. I could see myself.
Funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Pseudolus.
There you go.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Whatever it takes to get back on stage. So if I wanted to be in a show and I'm not in a theater class, how would I do that? How would I find out when and where to audition? Could I do that? You've already said that I could. What would be the process that someone would follow?
Well, you're asking me now for our theater website, and I don't remember the address.
Okay.
It's Richland Theater.
Okay.
But also you could email me at andylong@deappcd.edu. I get phone calls and emails.
Not as long.
No. I get phone calls and emails weekly from people who are interested in becoming part of the theater program. Students on campus, how can I audition for a show? How can I do this? We also, we post flyers about our auditions. You can come to Fannin Building and ask for me, Andy Long, or ask for any of the theater students, and we'll point you in the right direction.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay, we're about out of time, but my last question is always a two-parter. One is, tell me what we haven't talked about that we should have talked about. And the second part is, give me your elevator pitch for why someone should get involved in theater at Richland.
Okay, what have we not talked about?
That we should have talked about.
That we should have. talked about. Wow, that's a great question, and I don't really have an answer for you off the top of my head.
Which means I'm a great interviewer.
You are
Erica, you hear
fantastic.
that?
Larry King, go away.
You
That's
learn
right.
from the best.
That's
You
right.
learn
That's
from the
right.
best.
And if you've ever participated in any performance activity, if you've ever participated in shop in high school, or you've ever wondered anything about that, all of us have in us somewhere deep inside that performer that's just waiting to get out. We like to tell stories. We like to tell jokes. We're like, hey guys, listen to what happened. We're that person. Then come see us. And the theater program is about more, though, than just teaching you to be a performer. As I said earlier in the interview, it's about teaching you to become a better, more compassionate, kinder, well-rounded human being. Mm-hmm. And if you are going to ever do anything in your life that involves presenting information that you've had to prepare, man, an acting class is going to really help you with that.
Right. And I'm absolutely sure that's true. And I know that every job that anyone goes to college to get certainly is going to require that.
I hear the music, Patrick.
I hear the music. That means that's like
Thanks for having me.
That's like the gong. Thank you so much for coming on.
You've
This
got
was such
30
a fun
seconds.
interview. We got another 30 seconds.
Oh, cool.
We got another 30 seconds, and I didn't even get to ask you my question about improv. Y'all teach improv?
I do. I've had improv classes some semesters, but I do work improv into almost every acting class at some point.
Final question. Can you teach someone to have a theater capable voice? Do you have voice lessons?
We do.
Classes?
We have a voice class taught by Gregory Lush. Gregory's one of the busiest working voice anime actors in the Dallas area. He's also a very busy working theater actor.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the most important questions. I'm
my
sorry I
gosh.
interrupted. When I think of theater, I think of New York, Chicago, L.A. Where's Dallas?
Dallas is bustling. Dallas is the largest theater community in the state of Texas. We don't have the most film. Austin has the most film. Dallas has the most commercial work for actors in the state of Texas because DFW Airport is in the dead center of the country.
Right.
And we have a lot of corporate headquarters here. So we have a lot of commercials being shot in the Dallas area.
Uh-huh.
But Dallas
Cool.
theater community is top 5.
Top 5 in the country.
Top 5. L.A., New York, Minneapolis, Atlanta, and Dallas. Oh, I'm sorry, Chicago. So top 6.
Top 6.
Yep.
That is great. I didn't realize that.
That's very interesting.
Glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we are overrunning our time here. So thank you so much, Andy.
Hey, thanks,
it was
Patrick.
a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure, man. Thank you, buddy.
Good deal.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Patrick. And views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise specifically stated and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of anyone else at KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCC. You have been listening to More and Friends. Join us next week with more explorations of some of the great things going around on the Richland College campus. Thanks so much for joining us. For Andy Long and Patrick Moore, I'm Erica Edwards. Out.